Welcome to Om on the Range, where we share the practice of meditation, the wisdom of Western Buddhism, and the refuge of our community. Whether you are new to meditation or a longtime practitioner, committed or curious, this offering is here to share solutions, stories, and support. Happiness and better health are available to everyone. It just takes practice. This is Om on the Range. Hello and welcome to episode number 27 of Om on the Range. Each week we share stories, techniques, maybe a little wisdom regarding meditation, Western Buddhism, and the power of community. This week, Jordan Colley rejoins us as most wise co-host for the show. Welcome, Jordan. How are you?
Hi, Whit. You flatter me. Most wise. I don't know. We've had quite a bit of phenomenal people on here, so I'm just excited to be involved.
Well, you know what? In order to win that title, you have to be present to win. So, as the only co-host, you get to keep that. This is a funny time of year where we've almost settled back into our normal lives. We've bested the holidays and kind of come to terms with what life is in 2026. So, with your help, Jordan, we created some points to ponder as we move forward and travel the path that we're on. So let's dive in and see who and what we are at this point and how awareness and acceptance have affected us here in January of a new year. So let me go ahead and just put you right on the spot. We talked a little bit about, the importance of being able to nourish ourselves, to genuinely help our spirit flourish. So my question for you is, what feels genuine? What's nourishing to you right now in reality?
I like that you said that we're meeting each other who we are pretty much in the here and now, like it is in flux, and that's exactly how it is. So currently, I am nourishing myself just with small cups of tea. It's what I have time for in the busyness of my day. Previously, if you would have asked me at another time point, I probably would have it said like destination list walks or something, but I don't have that free time, which is fine because I've noticed with nourishing yourself, it really can become a focal point if you allow it to be in every single day, no matter what you have going on. So if I highlight the importance of it in my routine, then I'm kind of just naturally doing it with small things, like whether it be food, or I like to do the basics. So just to make sure I'm taking care of myself. So whether it being a longer shower than I normally take, or maybe food related, picking out something special or a nice drink. So right now it's just tea. What about you? I'm curious.
Well, a couple of things that you said really struck home and opened the my thoughts and my idea on what nourishing oneself really means, and that connection between the physical world and the spiritual, for lack of better terms. So, for example, you mentioned tea, and it made me realize that that's certainly one for me. Tea, sometimes coffee, a beverage. Trying to make a choice that is healthy, but also is, it's not even a reward as much as it's just something that you're going to take a moment during the day and give to yourself. And so you mentioned it and made me think of just how important the process is as opposed to what the actual subject is. Does that make sense? So it's not so much whether it's tea or coffee, or it's hey, this would be a good time for a warm beverage or a cold beverage, or this would be a good time to get a walk if you have time. And again, it's not really even what that thing is or what the action is. It's just giving yourself those moments throughout the day.
Yeah, that intention I think that you're kind of hitting on is all of what I imagine to be nourishing. Because if I take a shower hastily and I'm thinking about what I'm going to go tell my boss that morning to get a raise, or if I'm arguing with my sister in my mind That's not taking care of a need. So it's really the intention of that's the great thing I love about practicing mindfulness is you can really absorb the moment to the truest essence of the reality. And so you're not just, like I said, that example of the shower fighting with the imaginary person or concocting speeches or anything. A lot of that tends to just take you away from the actual activity, and the nourishment comes from the presence with the attention. That's what I'm wrapping around to say.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting also that it's the difference between theory and reality with this kind of nourishment. It's not you thinking, oh, I should drink 4 glasses of water today because that way I'll be hydrated and I'll feel better and whatever. Those things aren't bad, but it's really about what are we doing in the moment? You know, it's not how much water we drink, it's what are we doing right now when we feel like we have the time and we maybe needs too strong a word, but it's something that we can give ourselves that will allow us to continue to be healthy and happy in the present moment. So that presence, that having that intention, that acting upon something and making sure that we give this to ourselves, those are the key points. It's not really what it is or when you do it or even the grand total of the amount of nourishment you give yourself, because then you're keeping score and, oh, today I was better at this, yesterday I wasn't very good. Instead, it's just keeping it in the forefront and understanding that as I take better care of myself, I will naturally take better care of my life and my responsibilities and the people I love and maybe the people I don't love, but I have to still live with here in the world. So it all goes hand in hand, but it's just keeping it simple and keeping it, as you said, kind of the focal point, that moment to moment. And that's great advice for anyone. If they feel, or if anyone feels like, hey, I could be healthier, or hey, I could be happier, or hey, I could take better care of myself, then it just all goes back to this, okay, stay in the moment. What can you do right now? What do you have time for? What's your body telling you it might need or might want?
Yeah, and I treat myself with the same love or I attempt to do so with the same love and respect that I do for the little things in my life. Like I have plants in my office. And so when they start looking pathetic and I go, "Oh, I should probably water them." I pour myself a glass of water with it because sometimes I'm just as pathetic with it, and it's not even a negative conversation I'm having myself anymore with water. I mean, how many times should I berate myself about drinking water in life? Because I've, I've done it so many times. So when I it's just the intention and the movement behind it. So if I go, I should drink some water, I get up, I go pour myself a glass, I drink the water. I don't damn anything about the whole experience anymore or try to belittle myself into gauging how efficient I am at watering myself. Like it's really simplifying. I heard somewhere somebody said, just keep it simple, stupid. And I love that because that is absolute beginner's mind again and again, starting again. But then I like to complicate everything. I get in my own way. So I will, if as a basis of being a human being, I need shelter, I need food, and I need water, I need communion. And those are really the only things that are my business to take care of myself with. All the rest of it's either longing or craving or anything of that. I try to keep it simple.
Well, and it's hard to crave and judge and want when you stay in the moment. And the moment is such an interesting concept because it's both infinite, but it's also tiny. At least that's how it appears to us when we're in that egoic mind. And so, the next question I had for you was just about how small acts of kindness can change your day, even when they're quiet or unnoticed. But I think we've kind of hit on that, and I think we can expand fairly easily on. Again, it just goes to being having an intent, It goes to staying in the moment. It goes to taking care of yourself and making that a priority. But also the fact that we call them small acts of kindness, but really their size is irrelevant. And it's impossible to judge because you don't know whether it's a kindness that you perform for yourself or for someone else. There's no way of knowing what the impact is. And we don't generally do them for the impact. We do them because we're human beings and we have that ability to be kind. So I feel like I've just tucked myself in a huge circle, and I'm hoping you can get me out of this. But are there ways that small acts of kindness that you notice, or how have they changed your day, or how does that process feel to you?
The lens between, and I'm following your circle. I wouldn't say that it's quite a full one, so it was perfect. And I believe there's a metaphor of all of the actions being kind of a ripple, a rippling effect, like a pond, and how the ripples go out and out and out. That's exactly what I imagine being kind is like. And I do believe that human beings are benevolent by nature. Fundamentally, I just want to believe that. It's really hard for me to just exist on this planet believing in good and evil and all of this duality. So I like to just begin with thinking that people are benevolent. And now people do awful things and horrible things. I mean, that's evident, but the reasoning is just sometimes I'll probably never understand. So the kindness is interesting because it's not just buying a cup of coffee for your neighbor or, doing the payback stuff. People think kindness is just very, it can be very superficial by nature. So I've been trying to pay attention to the very minuscule things that are kind. And one of the biggest things I've noticed is the easiest way to be kind to another human being is not correcting them when you know that they're wrong or defending yourself immediately. Those kind of little microaggressions that kind of pop up from our ego is such an easy thing to kind of notice and pay attention to once you start. And then it's such a good, kind thing to just sit back and let people be wrong. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't need to embarrass the other individual. It's okay. And then you can kind of start to calm and stay with that fierce grace or that open heart that we kind of are aiming to get towards.
Your commitment to not correcting others is one of the main reasons why I like to have you on as co-host. So it's great for me. And that's really what this is about. So don't forget that. So I think it's interesting where you've landed on practicing kindness, because you're right. It does. I think it starts with people thinking, okay, how can I do something nice for someone? That's probably a pretty fair working definition for a lot of people. But then you start to realize that again, not correcting someone, not getting caught up in judging them, not correcting yourself, not judging yourself. Understanding that, hey, this is who I am in this moment. This is it. There's no point in wishing I was somebody else. There's no point in regretting what happened because it doesn't do any good. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of energy. Plus the battle that you might be deciding to have in your head about what happened when you were in sixth grade or what happened 10 minutes ago it's not a true view of what may or may not have gone on, and it doesn't matter anyway. You can't do anything about it. I think that being able to practice that kind of kindness for yourself also makes it much easier to practice for others.
I've been invited to so many of those like low stake moments too, that those are some of the things I do regret is when I think about the overall how I treat people. I mean, some of my biggest teachings were coming from moments where I tried to correct people or I tried to steer them on the course that I wanted them. I will probably battle that kind of control aspect for that's just a part of my neurosis, but it's fine. I invite it to tea now, kind of like how we've read the Rumi poem. It's a visitor. So when I'm feeling abrasive and I'm wanting to correct and I'm wanting to, make it be known that I am right, then I really know that I'm not going back to those steps. One that we kind of talked about with taking care of ourselves. The train's already off the rails if I'm already acting like that.
Is it more difficult or less difficult to practice non-judgment on yourself as opposed to, giving that to someone else?
Absolutely. I don't know. Let me back that up. I was listening to one of my favorite artists and somebody I imagine to be an icon and very influential to me. And they were talking about crippling self-doubt. And it blew my mind because I was thinking of this person who's been around for decades and decades and has a massive fan base dealing with self-doubt. I mean, at what point do you let that erode away? And maybe it's there as a anchoring to be human, right? We have these characteristics that keep us human. You know, we're not these flowy figures that can do no wrong, that um totally have a full grasp on not making mistakes like that. So I think the self-judgment serves a purpose in the sense of keeping us in the reality of our relationship with ourselves. So it's a mirror almost versus it being, something as absolute truth. I just don't want you to believe in the things that you always judge yourself with because they're not always true.
Do you feel like you have a lot of regrets?
Yeah, I mean, I have regrets. I don't feel like I am abnormal with the amount of regrets that I have. I think when I grew up, so I grew up in a household that was loud and that, if you shout, then you're heard. And I was rowdy when I was in my 20s and tried to fight people at bars, like all kinds of, here's the thing too, is I grew up pretty female in a very masculine house. So y- m- my interactions with people were just kind of aggressive from the beginning. And I think I truly had to go through all of that and to have some humility in the sense of how I was treating people and how I had this huge desire to be respected and viewed as important. Like I had a very strong ego in that sense, and I still do. And I love that part about me now because it's perfect for my practice. So I work the things that I deal with in just a complete different manner. So if I feel shameful for how I am, then I don't even feel that those feelings anymore because I've arrived in a place where I can feel proud of myself and accepting of myself now. So if I had to do those things in the past or walk that path to get here, then I don't regret it.
Yeah, I think the only thing with my history that might be a little bit different how I would answer that would be I would like to think I don't know that I would label those things as regrets as much. And again, it's just been the transformation from having a practice for me was just as you said, realizing that there's so much there to work with and having that step or that ability and that space to let those feelings come in and be with them and just let them have their moment, be recognized. But it just I think also I have a better feel and a better view now of what drove 22-year-old wit and 40-year-old wit for that matter. It's not just it's not just our 20s. There are times when and also you look back and it's much easier to look back and say, oh, I wish I'd done that differently, or I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done that. But at the time, that's who you were and that's how you were. And that's all there is to it. So those are the times where memory allows you to maybe not make the same mistake as many times, but it also unfortunately allows you to carry around those mistakes. And I try to live that idea that there really are no mistakes, and I believe that. But sometimes it takes a lot of work to transform all that, whether it's pain or whatever it feels like, to get it to a point where it's just a thing. Um, and now I
Yeah,
feel like, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt. I get excited too when we're talking about inner work like that. It's so beautifully crafted, no matter what we're going through, to heal that part of ourselves. I truly think that is one of our purpose, is to just really take our life experiences and transform them into the most surrealist we can. Even those, we talked about one of the previous podcasts about those being kind of like watercolors that we choose to either paint with or not. And I think that coming back from that conversation, it is absolutely how you want to paint your life. So the I Ching has a beautiful quote, and it was that keeping still is the mountain. And so that in itself just really brings the surrealness in our practice into how we handle all of the things that circular around us.
So in the present, and I guess it's not always the present. Sometimes it's something in your past that pops up. But when you feel fear, what do you do to help loosen that feeling or to help that transformative process begin? Is there anything that you could share that you found to be helpful? I still hide under the bed.
My bed is kind of low, otherwise I would hide under it too. Fear is an individual experience to whatever it is. So if I recently we got bad weather, so if I slide in the ice in the car and then I overreact quickly and my heart's pounding, but then I'm fine, might be different to reacting towards imagining going through aging or death of a family member or something. So there's varying degrees of what fear is. I think we just like to categorize it immediately into being something singular, but it has varying degrees. Being present with it the best I can, just sitting with it is going to be the most obvious answer. And letting it just exist. We see fear almost like we're a rabbit and spotting a hawk and we have to hide under a bush or take cover. But that doesn't stop the hawk from existing, and that doesn't stop those kind of feelings from rushing in and flooding our nervous system. So working with it and not attaching to it, and impermanence was one of the biggest blessings of my entire life. Understanding truly that everything is fleeting, even the good parts, we're sad that they go, but also the moments of fear generally are fleeting. We are able to exist in all of it and come back from it. So if something's keeping me captive in a fear state, I just know I have a natural confidence that I can loosen that just with some space and presentness.
I find fear very interesting. You mentioned, everybody experiences it differently. And even when I experience fear, sometimes it's very brief, or sometimes I can feel it and it doesn't matter. I'm still going to go on. Sometimes it brings about this courage. Yeah, I don't really want to do that, but I'm going to anyway. I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to, in this instance, the fear feels like a reminder that, hey, let's get on with this. You'll feel better. You'll do better if you go forward. But there's still times with things, usually fear of things that I have no control over, things that might happen in the future, for example, is a good example, or things that maybe happen and I had nothing to do with them other than they happened to me. Those are ones that sometimes strike harder. And I just find it so interesting that you feel it, but you don't always react the same way. Sometimes it's a friend. You're what, it's fine. Sometimes that's that extra, that heightened sense of being alive, is kind of welcoming. But then there are other times where it's just difficult. And I think it's the frustration at this point for me as it compares to my practice. I would like for it to be more consistent. I would also like for me to be more consistent, but those are two different discussions. So,
Hey, same here. I mean, I think the podcast puts us in an interesting perspective, at least mentally, while we're talking, because it seems like on my end that I've gained some skill or perspective on things that I'm talking about, but it's a daily practice. And, it's interesting too with fear because people pay for it. people go watch horror movies and they go around Halloween time and scare themselves. So there is some kind of energy behind it that is revitalizing if you work it that way. Sometimes I feel most alive after I've been scared because I've been autopiloting all day long. Or so maybe that fear served a purpose. Or if I'm just completely not listening to my subconscious and then I have a panic, then it was necessary for me to wake up to listen to myself. It's very important we take our inner dialogue with a grain of salt because it is biased, but also it serves a purpose as self-preservation, as self-attention, all of those things. So this is where I got to go back to keeping it simple.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good advice. It's also, like I said, an example for me of when that fear, when I'm really afraid about something, it's almost always something I can't do anything about right at that moment. And so it's very difficult sometimes for me to, and then it becomes frustrating because I know that, it's like, hey, this hasn't happened. It probably won't happen. It's outside of your control anyway. If what little control you have, this is certainly outside of it. And so then it's like, after all these years of practice, this is where we're at. So, it's difficult sometimes when you come face to face with those guardrails that you're operating in or those challenges. So let's flip this just a little bit. We've talked a little bit about fear now. What's it feel like when you're living in a compassionate way, when you're offering compassion to yourself or to others, whether it's in the moment or just in general? How does that feel?
Recently, the only example that I can think of quickly of giving myself compassion as of lately is resting when I'm tired. Because a lot of times we just live so fast paced that when we're tired, we're not being productive, or it's not always it's not always a moment to be proud of. And that's so strange because we're human and we need that break. We need that sense of rest. So when I go, oh, Jordan, you should kick up your shoes or lay
Right.
down, take a nap, or, whatever that looks like, then I feel true compassion with at least myself. And then with other people, I like to think I have my family members, my community, the people that I would see in the streets as in their best interest. But again, sometimes my will is not always what these people need. So I have to be careful on that.
Yeah, as you were answering that, it also made me think of kind of where we started with this. It all goes back to staying present and making sure that being compassionate and taking care of yourself and being this kind, considerate, spiritual being. In order to do that, you've got to be present and you've got to be committed to it, and not like it's a job it's a journey, and it's truly inside of you. So we stay present and we spend time, generally, I was going to say in meditation, but whatever your practice looks like, to have some space to get to know ourselves and let that spirit kind of overtake and take the lead, as opposed to being egoically driven, and
Yeah,
judging and
when I was working at the cancer center, it was interesting because what I considered to be compassionate towards people was really just my want to control the situation. So when someone was crying, I would jump up and, oh, let me get you water, let me get you a tissue, let me take care of you. And honestly, maybe that person in that very moment just needed to be heard in their current situation. So I have to be very careful when I deal with compassion towards other people, like I said. So that's why I like that you roped it back towards yourself, because that's where true compassion exists. If you're treating yourself with that truest of compassion, then I feel like you can operate from an advantage point towards other people because it's not attached towards your ego.
that point also kind of lends itself to what some people, I think, find confusing about Western Buddhism and meditation, in that in order for it to, in order for you to be a practitioner, you have to give yourself time and space. You have to commit to your practice. And it doesn't have to be an hour a day or 20 minutes. It can be something as brief as I think a minute a day will certainly do it, but it doesn't really matter what that is, but you have to give yourself that. And you get to know yourself better, and you start to practice kindness and compassion and non-judgment on yourself, and it naturally flows to other people. So I think if you're not a practitioner and you haven't experienced that, it looks like, hey, Whit just snuck off to take a 30-minute nap or to get away. And it's not escaping at all. It's growing and having space for not only yourself, but for everybody in a more kind and compassionate manner. There was no question there, Jordan. I don't know what you're going to say now, but that was a great segue to what was going to be my next question.
I was just taking a great pause. I was absolutely not being lazy.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think that is also a misunderstanding with Buddhism too, is that, as a practitioner, you have to be calm all the time, or you're not making progress, or you should have fewer emotions or anything like that. So as we go along into our journey of practicing these concepts, I realize that I've not lost one of my neurosis, and I'm so thankful for that.
I've just developed some space for all of them. I'm
Correct.
not running from any of them or trying to change them. But, it's funny, but that kind of goes back to how can we be there for other people without changing the moment? And it's the same with our personal challenges. Now I'm not trying to be less selfish. What I'm trying to be is just open to it. I just want to know what that is and how it feels. And, it's the same with people when they're in a stressful situation, or you're trying to help someone. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just be there. And, it all makes sense. It all becomes equal. It all feels equal to you. And as you live your life, because your practice allows you to better know yourself, so you better know others. Well, the world can feel scary at times. How do you stay rooted in kindness?
That's a good question. And the world has felt scarier recently with just all the chain of events and news and all of this influence. I stay kind by choosing to do it again and again, and waking up. And when I'm not kind, I get impatient. Sometimes people really can be irritating, and I can be very grumpy. And then I kind of laugh it off, because I don't know why I think I'm so self-important to think that I should go first at a stoplight. I stay rooted in kindness by trying to make my environment calm, and doing the things that make me feel relaxed and good spirits. And then I'm able to just kind of project that. But so again, I'm probably like a broken record. It goes back to that nourishing your soul, nourishing the things, listen to the music that inspires you, look at some art, look at some nature, sing a little silly song to your pets, hug your kids, call your parents if you have them, call a friend, those things.
Yeah, I think that these have been big topics, and I think you've been very deft in leading us through them. I appreciate that. But I also think that it comes down to those simple things. Stay present, have an intention, be true to yourself, understand that when you're true and non-judgment and compassionate for yourself, you can do that for others. So, Jordan, I want to thank you for co-hosting this episode. I'm thankful for your talents and your wisdom, and mostly for your friendship. So thank you very much. Oma on the Range can be found on numerous streaming platforms, including Amazon and Spotify, as well as YouTube. Feel free to comment or question wherever you find us. You can also send questions to our email at omaontherangepodcast@gmail.com. My name is Whit. This is Oma on the Range. Thank you for listening, and happy trails. Thanks to our Oma on the Range production team for making this program possible, and to Mr. Brad Athey for composing and performing the original music. And to you, our listeners, thank you for being a part of this journey as we explore meditation, Western Buddhism, and the path towards a happier, healthier life. Remember, less suffering and more joy are available to everyone. It just takes practice. Until next time, stay grounded, stay kind, and keep finding peace in the simple, practical things. For all of us here at On the Range, happy trails.